The weather is changing, the seasons are changing, and sadly that means the trails, they're changing as well. They are an absolute mudfest out there, and because of this, the cleaning regime has had to be upped. But can you be arsed sometimes? You get a bit sloppy, you get a bit slack, and you start making mistakes. Well, today we're going to look at a few of those cleaning mistakes and how to avoid them. So your bike is looking a little worse for wears. My first recommendation is get something to hold it up when you're cleaning it. So my number one would be a proper work stand, or some kind of wheel stand is going to work just great as well. Now, you might be thinking that's a bit excessive, innit? And I haven't really got the cash one, but the prices on these kinds of things have come down loads in recent years, and you can actually even find them in the middle aisle of your local supermarket. But I get it, we can't all afford one, and that's absolutely fine. So you can even make things out of wood, which will do a very similar job. There is good reason to have a proper bike stand for when you are washing your bike. It means you can get 360 around the bike to all those hard to reach little nooks and crannies that otherwise could be quite tricky to get to. And secondly, it's going to make life just a lot quicker and simpler as well. Have you ever had that nightmare where it's sort of leaning up against the wall or a corner and you're trying to wash it and scrub it and it's slipping and sliding away and there's potential for it to scratch? Well, it just avoids all of that. Okay, hands up everybody if you pre-wash your bike. Okay, yeah, even I'm guilty sometimes. You might be thinking, Rich, pre-wash? Why not just wash? Well, look, sometimes when your bike is absolutely baked in mud, you got to give it a pre-wash. You can't just lay into it straight away, because essentially all that mud, grit, grime, sand, whatever you've been riding through that's on there, if you start laying into it with brushes, it's going to do a monstrous amount of damage to your paintwork. It can leave swirls or even worse, proper scratches, which are really hard to get out. And let's just face it, they look horrible. It can actually go a step further as well, and you could help drive mud and grime into places it maybe wasn't before. And pre-washing is best done almost immediately after the ride. So when the mud is still wet, it means if you give it a good hosing or pressure washer in beforehand, it's going to fall off a lot easier, which then you can get to work. Unfortunately, with this bike, Blake put it back wet and let it dry. Just give it a good old rinse from a distance. That's going to help any of the big chunky mud to just drop off nicely and sort of leave almost a bloom on there. Then at that point, you're ready to use your bike-specific cleaner, which is going to agitate any kind of watermarks, dirt that's left on there, which will come off nicely on our next wash. It's time to wash then, the bike. And of course, this is one of the most argued things out there. To pressure wash or not? Well, in my eyes, a pressure washer is absolutely fine to use, but there's some definite do's and don'ts. Obviously, a garden hose is more than adequate enough and absolutely fine as well. And out there are low-powered pressure washers, battery-powered pressure washers, which are going to work great as well because they're not pumping out water at the absolute speed of light, and they're not going to do any damage to your parts or your frame or anything else on the bike. So if you do use a normal pressure washer, much like myself, I definitely do. First up, never stand too close. You shouldn't be in there like that. Die, dirt, die, get off. You're gonna be at least a couple of meters back. And also the setting makes a huge difference. You want a much more fanned out setting. Don't have it on that jet setting that it kind of looks like you're gonna cut steel with, because that is gonna absolutely destroy your bike. If you're going to go full ham with the pressure washer, I'm going to have to warn you because you can do proper damage, as I said. So if you're really getting in there up close with any kind of real pressure, you can blast out any grease, any kind of oil where it's needed, obviously. And also you can speed up water ingress. So you can actually push water into where it shouldn't be and doesn't need to be. Those delicate areas, bottom brackets, hubs, things like that, where you really want to go a little bit more gentle, that's where you really should sort of back off. And another big thing, actually, if you've got frame protection on your bike and you go in there with the pressure washer up close, you're going to actually just peel it off. It is literally just a sticker after all, remember. So any kind of damages or blemishes in that frame protection, you get water underneath it. It's going to speed up that process. It's going to look horrible of it peeling off. So yeah, go careful. Pre-wash is done and the bulk of the grime is gone. It's looking actually pretty clean. So now it comes to using the right products for the right application, if you like. Now, I know it can be pretty tempting to kind of, should we say, cut some corners here. And maybe, obviously, there are cheaper alternatives sometimes, like using washing up liquid to wash your bike with, but it's not ideal. I'm gonna be honest with you people out there. Think about it. A washing up liquid is essentially a degreaser. It gets all that horrible stuff off your pots, pans, plates, and God knows what else. So covering your bike in it isn't really what you wanna be doing because you're degreasing bits that you just don't want to. So dedicated bike cleaners like this are great for using in those kind of tricky little places like this, where they're gonna help break down dirt and grime, but keep any of the essential greases and things that need to be around in those delicate areas, like in the headset. And they're gonna foam up, cover absolutely everything, and really work their magic. All right, so the next big culprit I see a lot of people doing is getting trigger happy with the degreaser. Now, this stuff is amazing for doing exactly what it says on the tin, getting rid of grease. So if your bike's got more grease on it than a chip shop floor, then that is exactly what you need. But getting sort of full blast with it, covering your entire bike is a big no-no because you're getting it in loads of areas where you really don't want it to go. So if you're going really hard on it round, like I said before, hubs, bottom brackets, headsets, then it's going to strip the grease out of those as well. You really want to be quite delicate when you're spraying it on. Try and only get it in the areas that you can. And once it's degreased, the parts that you can see that need that degreasing, wash it off as quick as possible. So let's get to it. Once you've got your degreaser on there, a lot of bike brands will have specific brushes for specific applications. So I've got this nice little bristly brush here to really get in and amongst all the cogs, so I can just give it a good spin, work that degreaser on there. It's gonna do its thing, especially these jockey wheels. Blake, he's terrible, neglectlet. That's why I have to sort his bikes out for him. And that's gonna get all the grime off, give it a good scrub, and then once I wash it off, it should just come off nicely.
Thanks, Rich. Nice job, you missed a bit there.
Brake contamination. Now, this is an all too easy one to occur and generally happens when we get a bit trigger happy with the tins of aerosol. So we've cleaned our bikes down, it's time for lubing, and we get the old tins of silicone out and we're like that, all over the place. And it's that which can easily get onto our brakes, which is gonna kill them. So maintenance sprays like this are really good. They'll help drive out water, they'll displace it if you like, in those tight little areas like around your cockpit and stuff like that. And they're good, like I said, you don't wanna hold them really close in there because you'll get essentially splashing. You don't wanna hold them really far away because then you get an overspray where it's just going absolutely everywhere and covering it. What I'll try and do is cover up certain areas and spray maybe, or if I'm using something like this, certainly on safe areas, I'll put it onto a rag first and then apply it. And that's especially what I do with a silicone spray. Apply it to a rag first away from the bike and then apply it to it, and it gives that nice protective film. And then when it does come to lubing up the chain, I generally try and avoid aerosols and actually go for like a drip on lube. That way you don't get any worry of any of that overspray or other issues, because with this brake contamination that we're talking about, if you get it on the disc, if you get it on the pads especially, and it soaks in, it's generally a replacing game, because you can use a disc brake cleaner and it will work some of the time, but if it really does absorb into those pads, you're gonna have to swap them out, and that just gets expensive. You've washed your bike and it's looking absolutely gleaming. It's looking beautiful, but you can't stop there, people. You can't rest on your laurels just yet. Please, like I said, don't just go put this in the garage now all wet, because it's gonna kill it. You're gonna get sort of rust start to form on things like the chain, and water ingress is gonna happen on those places, like I've said in the past, that you just don't want it to build. No, you've still got to care for it just a little bit longer. We need to dry it off. Ideally, you want to use a good microfiber cloth here to just go over all of the parts, all over the frame, and really get it coming up nice. You can see, ooh, look at that, watch. Ooh, sparkling, right? But top tip, use a different cloth for anything greasy. So for things on the drivetrain, use a completely different rag. So have two separate ones, one specific for each. And that way you can dry the drivetrain and you get a greasy, oily rag. And then you're not gonna wipe that same rag all over the frame, or maybe, again, contaminate brakes, because we don't want that. So clean, grimy. If you really want to take drying your bike to the next level, top pro tip here is a lot of them actually use air compressors to help blast the water off in all the nooks and crannies. But just like using a pressure washer, don't get too close because you can, like I said, drive water in and not out. It is then almost time to put it in the garage. Final mistakes and things to avoid is the lubrication. We touched on, putting that silicone spray and that nice shine on the frame to help protect it. When it comes to the chain, well, you guessed it, you gotta lube it up. So, wet lube for the winter, dry lube for the summer, you guessed it. Main pitfall here is applying too much, of course. So you're gonna drip it on and you're gonna wipe off any excess. If there's too much on there, you're actually gonna attract more dirt and grime to stick to it and then wear it out even quicker, which you just don't want. You want to try and save money these days, not spend even more. So use the right lube for the right application. So take it steady when lubing, when cleaning, when drying. People, I don't want you to make any mistakes. I know we've done a hardtail, but obviously watch out for those full suspension, pivots, bearings, bushings. You know what else is going on in there. And I'll catch you next time. Have I missed any though? Are there some mistakes that you make? Well, if there are, let me know down below. And are you pro or anti-pressure washer? The debate rages on, but for now, from the courtyard here, thanks for watching.